welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional who just happens to have a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're going to discuss the obvious. We're going to discuss the latest Supreme Court decision that has essentially gutted our voting rights. And I'm happy to say that the NAACP gave a very excellent emergency town hall meeting on April 30th that I was able to attend. There were so many people in attendance that they had to go over to YouTube. Zoom was maxed out, so they went over to YouTube, and it's recorded there. So if you'd like to participate and learn what they said, we're going to talk about it here. But to hear directly from Kristen Clark, the general counsel, is a treat and very important to stay in tune for yourself. All right. So tonight, we're going to have three guests on that I'm excited to have because they are movers and shakers and are very activated and interested in these things. And first up, I'm going to bring up Renee Schalk. Renee, why is your picture not on here? Hold on. There you are. There you are. All right. Renee Schalk. First up, I have her. She is no stranger to the show. Renee was raised in New York City, and she has since relocated back home to New York City. She is the mother of 4 adult children and 7-year-old triplets. I don't know how she does it. And look how great she looks. Renee is a graduate of Columbia University and is a lifelong Democrat. She is also a New York City doula for women of color and socially economically disadvantaged women. She is a candidate for a New York City Community Education Council. She is a former candidate for a Texas political position, also was in education, and that's how she and I met. Renee has served as a volunteer coordinator for a congressional candidate in Texas. Welcome back to the show, Renee.
Hey, Pam. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good to be on with you guys. Remember, yes. They're 8 now.
Oh, they're 8 now. Girl, I can't listen, those babies.
They're growing up too fast. I know.
They're growing up too fast. And when they get to be 10, I'm going to pass out. They'll be in the double digits.
It's good to be here, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And next up, I have someone new to the show. Dr. Martin Pratt. He is a media innovator and policy expert known for co-creating Black Twitter, y'all. That's where I met him, on Twitter. He's also the founder of Black LinkedIn is Thriving community. Pratt's policy work spans Council of State Governments as a visiting fellow. His media work spans radio, television, and digital media, including hosting a television show known as Tech Hub on AIB TV in Atlanta, and producing radio shows for WCHR 90.3 FM in New York City and WURD Radio 96.1 FM. Martin, it's a pleasure to see you. Martin was the one who contacted me, Pam. I got something to say. Put me down. I said, okay. And he made things real easy for me this week in producing the show. And last but certainly not least, we have attorney Narissa Smith. She is also a speaker, teacher, and journalist. For over a decade, Narissa worked as a law professor teaching classes in criminal law, U.S. constitutional law, and critical race theory. As a result, she understands the many ways the American legal system perpetrates racism, sexism, and other forms of inequality. Narissa is a graduate of the Spelman College and of the Mecca Howard University School of Law. Welcome back, Narissa. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I was going to say, if anybody else out there from Howard, let's say HU, and hello to everyone.
Yes, yes. Okay, we have Dawn is saying hello to us. Good evening, Dawn. And Dawn is actually a NAACP president in a rural county in North Carolina.
Oh, so, good.
Yep. And I have to tell y'all that that urgent emergency town hall was very well attended. So, Narissa, since you're our resident lawyer and constitutional scholar, I want you to explain to the audience in layman's terms exactly why this SCOTUS ruling is so detrimental to us as a people.
Okay, well, to do that, actually, I got to put on my history hat.
Okay.
And of course, with this being the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and all that. But, we just lost.
Yeah, I saw that. We'll get them back. Get them
back. We obviously, when either of those documents were written, we, meaning anybody with melanin and anybody with a uterus, and quite frankly, white people who didn't have money were not included. When Thomas Jefferson wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal," they really meant men and women. Some of y'all may have seen Hamilton, right? And no, Eliza, her sister Angelica, actually did write to Thomas Jefferson and said, "You know that there are women in this country too," and they ignored that. That was something that was known to them. And obviously, other than I'm not even going to call it romantic, even then, despite the sexual abuse that they would import on their enslaved people, they didn't have they didn't see them as having any political rights. So fast forward to 1865, right? And now we are free and Black men can vote. I have to be very clear about that because sometimes people say Black people got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment. Like half of Black people got the right to vote with the 15th Amendment, but no. So Black men got the right to vote, but here's what a lot of Black folks don't know is that when Black folks started voting, we saw a change in the South immediately. The South Carolina state legislature was majority Black in the 1870s, just after slavery. So basically, as soon as we got the right to vote, we used it. Mm-hmm. And white folks saw that and became outraged. And that's when you saw these poll taxes, these grandfather clauses. You could only vote if your grandfather could vote. All of these things kept happening. And then there was the intimidation. So basically, after the election of 1876 and all the Northern troops that were actually enforcing these laws left, then there was no more right to vote effectively for Black men. So what you see is that there were no Black folks elected from the South. Like after that, you had Oscar DePriest in Chicago, and of course you had the inimitable Adam Clayton Powell, who, if you don't know about him, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., excuse me. So if you don't know about him, look him up. He is a trip, but he was all for Black folks. And you had the two of them in Harlem and in Chicago, as I mentioned, but you didn't have anybody else. And when Dr. King and them, they had some goals for the civil rights movement. Goal number one was the Civil Rights Act in 1964. That is the one that took down the whites only, colored only signs, and also gave us the EEOC right to vote, and something Adam Clayton Powell had been working on for a long time: no federal money going to racial discrimination. So those things. Then you get in 1965, the second part of the trifecta, and that's the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act had two really important things. One was pre-clearance. In other words, if your district had a history of having racial animus towards voters of color, you had to apply to the DOJ first, right? And ask them to approve your voter districts, right? And it wasn't just the South. I remember being shocked to learn that there was a district in Vermont where they had to do that. And I was like, okay, I don't know what y'all got going on in Vermont. I don't know how many black folks there. I guess y'all keeping all 5 of them from voting. But so that's what they did. And it worked. That's why we have the Congressional Black Caucus. That's why we have Jasmine Crockett, who we love. That's why we have AOC, who we love. That's why we have Ilhan Omar, Mama Maxine. How could I forget? Barbara Jordan, who I'm so glad I got to see speak as a child before she retired. All of those folks who we laud, if it were not for the Voting Rights Act, we wouldn't have them. So now, having said all of that, so that you understand why it's important.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that people understand the history. No, because I want to make sure that we set that. What the Supreme Court did the other day was to say, Louisiana said, okay, Voting Rights Act says we need to create a second majority minority district. In other words, a primarily African-American district so that we can comply with the Voting Rights Act. And the Supreme Court said, no, you don't. And Louisiana's like, yeah, but we thought we were going to get sued. And to make a very long story and a very technical story short, they took Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and said, only under very, very narrow conditions can you draw a district that is primarily one race. And why does that matter? Because that means that now states have less of an obligation. Now, let me be very clear here. Section 2 still exists, but I want you to envision someone who is very healthy and vigorous, and then envision someone who's kind of infirm, maybe using a cane or walk, not to be ableist, but just they're having difficulty. That's where the Voting Rights Act is right now. It needs some help getting around, and we're going to have to make sure that we do everything we can to keep it going. So I'm sorry that took me a while. I want to make sure everybody understood what happened, and what we stand to lose now is, depending on who you talk to, some people are like, we're going to lose every black seat. No, because for now, the law is still on the books, and that would clearly violate the Voting Rights Act. So, but there is a chance, depending on who you talk to, we could lose, especially in the South, about half of the Black and Latino representation at the high end. And the more conservative estimates are losing about 25 to 30% of the seats that we currently have in Congress that are held by folks of color.
Well, I know that when Kristen Clark was speaking to us at the emergency meeting, she was saying, she literally said this: stay hydrated. And it was chuckles. And the main thing was that this was going to be a long fight. This was not a sprint. This was a marathon. And it is something that we must take seriously, and that we have to register every eligible voter, make sure they have ID, all of the things. And I'm going to list them later. But Dr. Martin Pratt, since you were the one that was just so anxious, Pam, and I was so thrilled for somebody to be bugging me about, I want to do this or whatever. So, and that makes my heart glad. Tell us why. What you had some special thing that you wanted to
but first I have to give props to my fellow guests, 2 sisters. In this day and age, I have 3 adult children, but I have a 4-year-old who's autistic, and she kicked our butt. So both my wife and myself, we have twins, siblings. So we was like, we are not trying to have, God, please do not. And so he didn't give us twins, but I cannot imagine your life, Renee. And I just, tip my hat to you. And, you're in New York. I have a family-owned bookstore. I'll make sure you get discounts for the triplets. We're in Harlem. So I'm not trying to do an advertising, but just, we've been there 25 years. So Sisters Uptown Bookstore is my aunt. And I spent a lot of time in Fort Greene, and also in
I love Fort Greene.
So yeah, I love Fort Greene too. And to our Sister Smith, thank you so much for your breakdown. Unfortunately, I think that the time that Sister Smith took is necessary. Unfortunately, this is not an easy thing to navigate. To understand, people are having two different problems. One, there's a lot of misinformation. Two, you're going to have to think through this. This is not a just go do this. This is a multiple layer strategy. And it reminds me, I'm 54, I'll be 55 this year. This is what we grew up on in 1970. So in 1970, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no cell phone. So when you wrote a letter, usually you wrote a letter. You wrote it, and you had to mail it.
Yes.
You had to have the right stamps.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would return to you. And you had to wait for a response via the mail. So there is a whole generation. I'm not even talking about millennials, Zs, and A's. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people our age who are over 40 and that should know better, who have reverted back to these younger generations' mindset. I'm blessed to be employee. I think I was 0.5 of Black Planet, which started in Fort Greene. So
was it? Did it?
Omar Wasu, brother Wasu, on Fort Greene Place, right across from Brooklyn Tech. He was my neighbor. And I was running Cocoa Bar. Cocoa Bar was the first Black-owned cyber cafe in America. Now that's owned by Tracy Chapman, Spike, Dana Owens, and her mom. And God, why can't I think of her name? The sister that's a writer, Alice Walker's daughter, Rebecca Walker. Rebecca was the founder, and along with Angel, which was her life partner at the time. But my point was to this conversation. This is a very nuanced, old school situation. This is not something that we've dealt with in the last 20 years in politics. And my background in politics, I don't really talk about it a lot, but I did the social media for Robert Cornegy. He was a brother that's almost 7 feet tall, the tallest politician in the world, from Brooklyn. We did everything. Robert, he beat the powers that are trying to do deed theft right now in New York. He beat the Hasidic community. The Hasidic community ran a brother who wasn't from Bed-Stuy in Bed-Stuy. We beat them by 600 votes in a runoff. And we only had 60,000. This guy had 600,000. So I understand local politics, and I worked on a couple of national campaigns. And, I reached out to you. I don't know if you remember, but I was on your show 2 years ago. Well, I'm not necessarily new to your show.
That's right.
I know. But listen, I'm the type of guy. Somebody asks me to do something once, I'm there. They don't come back to me. I don't, I'm not like trying to be every week. Hey, I want to be this. But this was an important conversation because, again, my background is social media and also radio and then politics. So what I was seeing when I reached out to you was all of a sudden I saw this energy drop. And people that I've been battling since Sister Harris. I've been battling every day on Twitter for the past 2 years, literally battling. And half the people I battled, now they're against the Republicans. So it's a funny and weird place to be at. But on our side, on the Dem side, on social media, I saw this energy drop. I was almost like, it's over. I'm like, yo, I don't want to curse. But I was just like, no, Negroes, listen. And then I saw one white, and again, my demographic is mainly Black. I'm a founder of Black Twitter, but also a brand called I Love Black Women. And the first person on the internet that said ILUV Black Women.
Yes.
And wore a T-shirt that said it everywhere in Brooklyn, everywhere in DC. DC was where I got arrested because I was walking. You got to walk up the street, the side, the stairs, the right side back in the day. Otherwise, you got arrested. So I'm wearing a T-shirt, and the cops looks at me and is disdained and basically said, we pull you over for a ticket for jaywalking. I was like, jaywalk? I'm walking up the stairs in the subway, the metro. But anyway,
on the metro, they did.
I believe if I wasn't wearing that T-shirt, he wouldn't have messed with me. But my point is, so I'm blackity, black.
Yes.
The white people were saying this. This might be a good thing because that's going to force everybody to go and do the right steps. And so I saw that, and then literally right before the show, I have a client that's hired me as part of his company. We're in stealth mode. We're coming out of stealth mode, going to beta, and we are the only currently AI voter database, all this stuff, get out the vote, all in one. Remember Nation Builder? Remember that website? We're 5 times bigger and better than Nation Builder. But I didn't think about it just now, just a few minutes ago. We have about 5 campaigns using our software right now, and the campaigns pour their data into our software, and then we don't grab stuff off the internet. We're dealing with what the campaign has access to. But the unique part of our software is we have opposition research. And so it's not a separate price. It's all in one. I'm not trying to sell a software, but to your point, your question, I did not realize it as we're looking at certain things in California and Texas, and there was somebody else I'm looking at. Oh, Alaska. As we pitch these campaigns, one of their questions is, or has been, what about the Black voters? What about Latino voters? I'm losing. I'm seeing like my screen is closed. Oh, okay. Sorry. This is freaking Microsoft now decides that to send me a message saying my screen is at risk, my computer's at risk. But as soon as I get to the point, Latino voters, they're asking us, what about Latino voters? What about Black voters? What about Asian voters? And so predominantly our target market for this software has been white, Democratic, second, the person running against the incumbent on the Dem side. And they're usually at the top, they're the second person. So what I realized is that we also have a chance that we have never had to balance the scales in a different way. Meaning that these white folks are mad as hell. Yeah. At the Republicans. Republican voters are mad. And then their top people, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, they're all saying that the Republicans deserve to lose. They're not saying, go vote Republicans. They're saying, based on what the lies that were told and what's been happening with the administration, they should lose. And so targeting for Dems to now target Republican voters in a unique way, I think we have a more than a fighting chance to balance the scales to where, quote unquote, race doesn't matter. It's just all votes count, that whole thing. So I'm excited by the opportunity, but I'm concerned that the information for me is go vote 1, 2, 3. 1, check your status. Yes.
Early. They talked about you have to repeatedly check your status.
Exactly. 2, make sure that you then check your wife, your neighbor. So not just you check yours, but now check your neighbors and make sure they're doing it. And 3, vote early as possible. The first day that you can vote in any wherever you are, go vote that first day. Don't wait until November. Don't wait until September. Whatever date that you can start, do that right then and there, and make sure you video your vote. Make sure you video. Make sure you take before you go in. So to me, this is going back to I think it was 2012. It it might have been 2010 or 2014. I can't remember which one. But a group of us was hired by a teachers association to help the unions understand how to use social media after they voted. And so I went to Ohio, I went to Florida, I went to Georgia, and I talked at union halls about this is what you do on Instagram, this is what you do on Facebook, this is what you do after you vote to show that you voted. And so I think that's going to come into play again. That record, that video record that I voted, but I was there before. With Jasmine Crockett, we have a number of people in Houston that were, on screen crying because they went and they weren't registered. They said they weren't registered. Yeah. They came out to the car crying, and then people got online. It was basically on TikTok. People got online and they said, "Listen, this is what you got to do." And what I loved about TikTok at that moment was we were tagging Jasmine, and Jasmine, her team was responding within an hour. And so some of those people were sitting there crying, and by the time they finished crying, Jasmine's team had already called them or found them and told them how to navigate that situation. So I think we're going to have I call it a voter rights rapid response team.
Absolutely. Renee, I got to hear your voice in all of this because I know that you are a political warrior, always on the front lines doing something and working. I get the phone calls and the texts.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to say, Ms. Smith, thank you so much for that breakdown, because you're right. It really needs to be, and I'm not saying that it's just something that we didn't have to deal with, learn about constitutional law. I tell people I got my JD, I have a couch JD, I have a couch MD, I have a couch this, because I had no choice. I had to listen to this mofo for 11 years and learn all these terms and jargons. I was like, I didn't pay to go to law school. I don't even want to be in law school, but I know so many terms now because of that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, to make it simpler for us lay folks to understand that. And Dr. Pratt, I want to give you a shout out. Thank you so much for shouting me out. And I definitely want your information, because I live, right in the heart of Brooklyn, right across the bridge from Manhattan. So there we are. And so what I have to say is, first of all, I'm going to tell people, don't panic. We've been in worse conditions as Black people, so we know what to do. It'll come back. It's like the muscle memory will come back. Don't panic. We still got some of our ancestors here who can help us walk it through, but do not panic. So I want to say that everybody should see what the play is. There is a play to this. Mm-hmm. The White House, I call him White House Grandpa now because I can't. And the regime. So what their plan was, they thought early on that if they go ahead and free the J6 offenders, people would get pissed. Black folks would get pissed, particularly. Then they thought, okay, well, let's go ahead and just let's take away DEI. They're definitely going to come out for that. And they thought that would work. The whole idea is that they're doing this because they want to declare martial law. And they're not going to declare martial law on all the white folks. They're going to declare martial law when us Black folks come out in droves and be on the front line. Right. So none of that has worked. So what do they go to now? They gut almost completely gut the Voting Rights Act. So that's the plan. And they're thinking that surely is going to get Black folks out in droves so that I can declare martial law, so that I can definitely take over the elections. Well, that's not working either, because what they don't understand is that we're smarter than them. We've been here before. We're going to outmaneuver them, and we're going to outthink them, and this is going to work. So Eric Holder left me with a really good piece of information and expertise today. I was listening to him about this. And, all the other lawyers and attorneys who do constitutional law or whatever. And basically what he said was, what we have to get out there as Democrats and independents or whatever, is that this gutting of the Civil Rights Act is not just going to affect Black people and brown people. What it does is it takes away the rights of Democrats, because what the SCOTUS ruled was you can gerrymander based on party. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to cut out they're going to take all the Democrats out in one area and dilute it, whether you Black, white, purple, whatever. And that's the goal. Now, yes, Black folks are going to be hurt the worst because we typically vote Democratic more than anybody else. I don't know about the Hispanic community as much, somewhat, and some women. So what they're going to do is going to carve out the Democrats, whether, and put them all, separate them and sprinkle them through some Republican districts. So that way the Republicans will be the dominant party to win. So we have to be smarter than that. We got to figure out how we fight that. And but it is a complicated ruling to understand, because there's so many, like Ms. Smith, that it is very complicated. But once we get the big picture, once we understand what they're trying to do, and I'm going to tell every Black person, don't get out there in droves. Sit back, be smart, do your social media stuff, do your reach out, but don't go to the front lines. Our white allies have this, and they're going to understand that they have to have it, or they're going to be not having a vote either. So
yeah, there was one white lady that
I know.
that a reporter asked her, well, what do you think, why the black people aren't out here, whatever. And I said, you better go, girl. She said, no, they don't need to be out here because then they'll get arrested and jailed and all of that. They need to sit back and we do this because it's for all of us. And I was so proud. It was like, oh my God, somebody gets it. And I was so glad that she said it on national television. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Can I jump in real quick with an anecdote?
Yes.
So I went to my phone the other day. I went to Instagram. Instagram is really trying to become TikTok with the algorithm feeding you what it thinks you really want to see, and based on just what you looked at last. Whereas TikTok has been doing that really well. So I went, opened it up as this white boy, and he's in New Orleans on the street corner, and he's spitting game. And so he's like, the voting right act's been taken away. This is why it matters. Black folks, da, da, da. Now I'm gonna tell y'all, you as white people, and he puts on white gloves. He's like, you as white people may not care about this, but you know what this administration is trying to do? And he didn't say the N word, but he said, treat you like black people. And when I saw that, I put it on LinkedIn today. When I saw that, I was like, they get it. They understand. You are now N-words.
I'm not saying don't advocate, don't do some kind of protesting, but it does fight financially. We good at that, so we could decide that we ain't gonna fund something, whatever.
Target.
There you go. That part. So
and to a large degree, we're also good. We're excellent, not just good. And this, I can say this to all three of you. So Pew Institute, pewinternet.org, from 2009, it said this: Black women tweeted the most, Black women blogged the most. Now, in 2026, Black people, but specifically Black women, also listen to podcasts the most. We were underneath white folks. And so what I'm saying is that we have the ability, our social reach, our social capital, as Renee was talking about. You don't have to spend your capitals in your bank, but you can dang on sure spend the social capital and make a difference. Because white folks need to see, not the ones that are probably following us, but the general market needs to see how, and I believe they are seeing it, how this specific detail is going to affect. By this time, November comes, who knows what gas is going to be? And
oh, God.
Who knows what pork chops or, anything pork, because pork used to be cheap. Now pork is a ticket. So they need to hear that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah. And can I just wanted to say, I didn't know if you had a question teed up, but I wanted to go back to something that Dr. Pratt said a while ago, because it just stuck with me. And I think that you mentioned it too, Pam, which is that there are not too many of us who are alive now who have been through this, right? And I think about how I grew up at the feet of my grandparents who came from the north from the south to the north in the second wave of the Great Migration, right? And I heard the stories about why they came up and what it was like for them. And I carry that in me, but also I've been very intentional about making sure that my child also understands that. My child whose first vote was cast for Kamala, right? So that, down at the North Library. But but the problem is, I think, and as I'm thinking about the historical part of this, I want to say two things: the bad thing first, and then the good thing. I think that some of us younger boomers and Gen Xers, right? Basically, anybody born, I want to say probably after 1964-ish, right? I think that folks got comfortable. Elaine Jones, who used to be the head of the NAACP LDF, I heard her speak while I was in law school, and she actually said that, and that just sent a lightning bolt through me, because she basically said after all the wins of the civil rights movement, people were kind of basically like so busy celebrating that they didn't think about that there was still work to do. And what I'm bringing to, a lot of people did not teach their children that there was still work to do and why it was still to be done. Again, a lot of folks born, Black folks born after 1964 went to integrated schools. You might have went to your white friend's house. So it's like a lot of us, not all of us, but some of us kind of thought, oh yeah, American dream and we equal and all of this. Like, meanwhile, like, no, you ain't. No, you ain't. I don't care if you have a job and great white coworkers, you got a white spouse, you could live in a mostly white neighborhood. None of that equals equality in a system that we have where the foundation of it is white supremacy. We are living on stolen land that was stolen after a whole people were murdered. So, and then a whole other group of folks was kidnapped to work the land. And beaten the whole time. So when you look at it like that, I think a lot of folks who were in the movement, because like some folks, you know, they might have been Panthers at the time, you know, or in the movement, or maybe they were part of SNCC or whatever. But for whatever reason, when they had kids, they kind of clammed up and they didn't want to have those uncomfortable conversations about no, yes, well, that might be what they do at Timmy's house, but you need to understand, or yeah, well, you might be friends with little Debbie, but not little Deborah, you know, but you're gonna have to work twice as hard to get half as much.
But the problem is
at some point that stopped.
I do think that we got to a point where we thought we arrived. We thought we arrived. You know, we got a certain money status. We were able to travel. We were able to maybe not be so impacted by the redlining because of laws and just because we had it like that. And even, you know, and we forget, and then we don't tell our kids. We don't, or our kids haven't had the unfortunate opportunity of facing point blank racism in their face, maybe, you know.
And Pam, I agree with that, except that I would say also too, to add to that, not except, to add to that, is that communities are not the same anymore. A lot of my family's in the South, but a lot of their kids moved out, had to go where the jobs are. And so we're not that knitted community anymore. We've dispersed across the country and across the world. And so we don't have that same kind of community any longer. You would think it would be maybe easier since we have social media and we can get in touch with people everywhere, but it's difficult because everybody is working so hard in their own little space to that it's hard to, you know, even when we're planning a family reunion, it's hard to get all of us on a virtual meeting to plan a family reunion. And so basically families now, Black families are in silos and they have their friends and whatever else. So that's the difficult part. But I would also, Zachary had made a point about the Supreme Court comment. And what I say with that is that what I was saying is that we have to be intentional. So I see that we will get the House back regardless of what the Supreme Court just ruled. And I see that we have a pretty strong possibility we'll get the Senate back. So once we get those chambers back, we need to stop playing by the old rules and start playing by the new ones, which they made. And we need to be fierce and we need to not worry about what people will think of us, with the independents, with this one, because we'll save all their asses. What we do as Black people, when we get equality, everybody gets equality.
Exactly.
What they don't understand, but they're saying it now.
Well, I hope they are, because I think about the Arab community in my hometown in Detroit. Actually, they're in the suburb. Most of them are in Dearborn, Michigan, of which my block that I grew up on runs into Dearborn. And when I was growing up, Dearborn had signs that said, "Let's keep Dearborn white and clean." Okay. I remember when my mom and Dad at the time were looking to buy a house, and we ran into the portion of Dearborn. My mother realized, oh, this is Dearborn, we can't live here. I never will forget that. I was about 7 years old at that time. But at any rate, I digress. But I remember my mom has been doing a lot. She's always been a community activist. And she would, try to encourage the people to vote and all this stuff. And then, of course, the Arab community got really pissed off. And they said, well, we're just not going to vote for Kamala. And her whole reason is, you all don't understand this man. You're not them. They don't give, you think just, it's like they think they're the exception and not the rule, right? Mm-hmm. And when Black people, listen, y'all, when a Black woman, Black people, period, tell you what the 411 is, believe it. You can take it to the bank and cash it because it's a fact. Yeah. All right.
No disagreements there, but I just want to say, because I think we all know some Arabs, some Asians, some Latino folks who want to get that proximity to whiteness. But mm-hmm. I think that just speaking for us, mm-hmm. I think that, like we were saying, so many of us got entranced with the upward mobility. And one of my professors in law school, again, I will never forget, Michelle Jacobs. She's at the University of Florida now, if I remember correctly. She's still teaching. But she said that one of the reasons why the anti-Jim Crow civil rights movement worked with Dr. King and them is because it said whites only, coloreds only. It didn't say colored only, but if you are a doctor or a lawyer, then you can drink out the white fountain. And so in a way, they found our Achilles heel, which was class. So as we talk a lot about white flight, you talk about Detroit, I know Detroit well. I didn't grow up there. I grew up across the state, but we know how it worked in these industrial cities. Every city in America has a story of white flight.
Yes.
And sometime in the mid 60s, the city was either mostly white or half white, and then all the white folks left. But what we don't talk about a lot is that there was also Black flight. The doctors, the lawyers, all of the other, the so-called talented 10th of our community left and kept going out to the suburbs farther and farther and farther. And as this same professor was saying, she said, y'all keep following these white folks to these neighborhoods. They ain't going to want you. You can follow them to the moon and they still not going to want you to live next door. And we are going to have to find a way beyond politics to do exactly what we're doing now. Like you just told the story about Dearborn. You got to, make sure that the young folks in our lives know those stories, because the scary part to me is, and I know that you said, Dr. Pratt, that we didn't want to talk about Gen Z, but I do, because a lot of them are who didn't cast their first vote in the last election, about to for the next one. And then Gen Alpha, all Gen Alpha has seen in terms of politics is orange foolishness in the White House. And history and understanding our history is important so that we can say, no, actually, this is not how it's supposed to work. And the reason why I think that's important, because I was talking to Pam earlier today, so many of our young people in particular get their news and their understanding from social media and will just believe any old thing. And I'm like, no. Now, my daughter, because she knows who I am and how I raised her, and so when she sees something that seems questionable, she'll call me or she'll text me and be like, Mom, somebody's saying this happened. Is that true? Like, no, that ain't gonna happen. Like, no, that's not even gonna be close to happening. Like, so, but if you want me to tell you what you should be worried about, blah, blah, blah. But I think that we also are gonna have to do a form of if not media literacy, social media literacy, to try to get folks to understand that you can't believe everything. And not just that, you can't listen to everybody. I see this thing, folks are after Killer Mike, and I think deservedly so, because they're like, oh, now you're saying folks need to come together, even though you was telling folks not to vote for Kamala and not to vote for you. Like, I think we are going to also have to have a reckoning in our community with two groups of folks in particular. I'm leaving off the third group, the Candace Owens and them, because they're gonna have to deal with some other stuff. That's beyond us. That's divine intervention. But with the folks who, like in that 2016 election, was like, I don't see why y'all vote, or in 2024, I can't vote for Killer Kamala and all that. like, you know what? We see where y'all logic done got us, and you have shown where your logic has led us. And now, thank you. The grown-ups are in the room. We got control. No, we're not going to be listening to y'all. But the second group of folks I think we need to be talking about, and no one is talking about this group enough, 40% of adults in our country did not vote in 2024.
Yeah. They talked about that in the emergency town hall. That's why that voting registration, look up all of the things that we have to do, because that non-voting thing absolutely does not make sense. It makes no sense.
I'm going to defend it a bit for one group of folks. If you are a Black person who was brought up in poverty and all you saw was your mama in poverty and your daddy was locked up, and your uncle was locked up, and that's all that you saw your whole life, and all you know is that no matter who's been president, that's what's been happening in your family. For them, I understand why they've checked out. I don't think that it's right, but I understand why, because who's been reaching out to and talking about them? In politics in America for the past 20, 30 years or so, you hear people talk about, let's work for the middle class. Let's work for the middle class. Who's talking about poverty? I don't think any major politician has talked about poverty since Bobby Kennedy back in 68. And that's a problem. Because if I was growing up in the projects and my mama was in the projects and my grandmama was in projects and that's all I knew, I might actually think, yeah, why am I voting? Because what's going to change? And I think that we are also going to have to, you know, yes, we need to use our churches and our D9s and everything else that's at our disposal, but we're also going to have to find a way to reach the folks in our community who have been left behind, because nobody's thinking about them. You know, we just write off, you know, well, Pookie and Ray Ray and them. Pookie and Ray Ray can vote too, and they are going to be hurt by a lot of this stuff that's going on more than anybody else.
I'm working on something for that here, actually.
Let's talk about it.
Truly, I am. I want to show you guys
Pam, I just wanted to jump in real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just kind of be the contrarian. I don't think that Black people have tapped out. I actually think that we've tapped in more. So we had Oscar Grant. We had our interview Sean Bell's wife right after the tragedy in New York. I remember going to the press conference for Amadou Diallo. I remember, doing the Oscar Grant. We organized on MySpace for Gen 6. I think that Black people have done more since 2000 than I remember us doing in the 80s and 90s. I actually think we voted more in the second election of Obama. So the question to me isn't Black people need to do more. I think that what we need to do is to be willing to talk more about what we're doing in this time period. Now, when to everybody's point, in 2016 and also the last election to some degree, I saw more in the last election than I did in 2016, being willing to talk about. So Ice Cube was big. You know, he had a lot to say in 2016. A lot of the what do you call it? The ambassadors, I forget the other word I'm looking for. The people that, like, for instance, Eva Longoria, everybody that came out for Obama, I forget what they call them.
They were like ambassadors for
right. So in 2012, everybody was going to talk. The reason why we started Black Twitter literally was because the word post-racial. Remember, they were using the day after Obama got elected. We're like, we're not Black, we're post-racial.
Yeah, we're in the post-racial era. Yeah,
right. And so I found that we actually are doing more, but the media and us. And I'm going to take the media on because that's sort of my way, my space. We've lost the voice of the Black newspaper.
Yes.
And to your point about Detroit, I'm not going to name names, but a major social media company came to me and says, we have given $2.2 million to this association that deals with Black media, and they did nothing specifically in Detroit. So now, Martin, we want to talk to you. How do we get to the Black newspapers? So we set up a program at this media company who no longer has a journalism department, but they had it then, right in COVID, and Black newspapers got 100,000 to 50,000 directly, no going through somebody else. So again,
we need to talk.
Yeah. So this company, it starts with F and a B, came to me and said, we need to reach Black newspapers, and we need the Black newspapers to be digitized. And so that's why Word in Black exists right now. Word in Black is a collection of Black newspapers that got that funding.
I'm sorry, I just got so excited. I love Word in Black.
So the thing is that we lost our voice, but we still showed up in high numbers. And even this last election, I don't give what anybody says. Black people did what we were supposed to do. We showed we're the most educated electoral voice in this country in the last election. Everybody else did not do what they were supposed to do. So I need us to stop focusing on the 30%, 20%. We need to focus on exactly what we need to do and vocalize that more, and hold these media outlets that say they're Black newspapers or say they're Black radio, hold them accountable, because most of them are not showing up. So it looks like we're not doing it. It looks like that we left the community. It looks like we because where's that information at? But I don't see us leaving the community. We protested more because we've been unfortunately we were killed horrifically more in the last 20 years than I recall in 80 and 90. We had certain things, Eleanor bumpers and all these other small, isolated incidents. But the last freaking 15 years was one killing after another killing after another. We constantly showed up. So I just don't think that it's that we have a problem showing up. I think that we have a problem being publicized within our community that we do what we did do, and we did excellently. And then that patting on the back, definitely right now, everybody's coming together because we have to.
We have to.
But what happens in 2030?
Yeah.
When the Democrat has the House, we have the Senate, and we have the presidency.
We can't relax. But we cannot relax.
We can't. But I just want to push back a tiny bit, because I agree with what you're saying. But I also, and I don't know if this is because of the legal training or what, but one of the things, I don't want to say I'm tired of it, but people like to protest. I think that there's always been a segment of the Black community that is good at showing up and protesting, but it's reactive. It's not proactive, and it's not prophylactic, right? It doesn't help us. It helps get the anger and everything out. And sometimes it is good to just let people see how you feel. It's cathartic. But a lot of folks, the same folks who may have shown up, and I agree with you because I've seen the same things, who may have shown up for Oscar Grant or Sandra Bland or Breonna Taylor or whomever, or like the young lady here who got arrested for snatching that Confederate flag. I said here, but down in
South Carolina.
In South Carolina. Yeah, I think her name Bree Newsome. I think her
yes.
name. But she like that stuff. That is great. But I do think we have to build on that and to say, okay, well, why is it that these police departments are running roughshod? Let's take a look at that. Because I spoke at this group for mothers who had lost their sons to police violence not too long ago, a few months back. And some of the folks there were very frustrated. And one of the things that I was saying, and I said, well, let's talk about the voting part of it. And I got a lot of pushback. And I said, well, hold on. Let me give you one example. When George Floyd, I said, now we all saw that. I said, only the most callous person in the world would say that that was not a murder, right? I said, but let's talk about that. Trump's Justice Department back in 2020, when that happened, they only authorized the investigation of the individual officers. I said, when Biden was elected, he authorized the investigation into the department as a whole. I said, that's important. And a lot of people don't know this, because if you can prove that they've had a pattern and a practice of discrimination against different groups and certain behavior, then the Justice Department gets to put certain restrictions on them. And that's key. And they did not understand that. And to flip it another way, I was at a gathering with educated Black folks. Everyone in the room had degrees, and they were complaining, this is back in like 2016, that Obama hadn't done enough about crime in Chicago. And I had to break it down and say, that's not his job. As a matter of fact, you would not want the president to be in charge of local policing because it would look like what was happening in that is the whole thing. So I think that, as Renee, I believe, said at the beginning of this, a lot of stuff is going to happen simultaneously. And if you need to know we all need to know what our rights are, and we need to know how this system is supposed to work. And was it designed to work for us? No. But are we going to make it work for us? You better be damn skippy, because we have to. We don't have a choice. There's that wonderful quote by Audre Lorde that says, you can't use the master's tools to tear down the master's house. But I want to just add to that and say, I still got to live here. So I don't know if I want to tear this house down, but we sure going to do a remodel. We about to do a renovation up in this mug. For real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Renee, Zachary, as usual, always puts something interesting in the chat. He said Pookie and Ray Trump thinking they would get another stimulus check. And I'm gonna tell you that how long was $1,200? How long did $1,200 last you? Don't last no time.
It depends on how many children you have, because there was some more added on for each child. So that might have been a nice little $8,000 check, but I don't know how long that lasts.
Did they get add-ons for how many children?
Children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, children got something like, I think the first one started at 400.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I got extra for my daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I want to say it real quick to put out there.
If you have a bunch of children, then that little check is pretty good for somebody who.
But he brought up that point, and then he also says, and their hatred for the alphabet community.
Yeah.
And they listen. They have weaponized these things, with religion and all this type of stuff.
And hatred for women. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There are a lot of men. We're seeing it last 2 weeks online. With this whole Megan and Kay, I'm trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that. But also another thing I meant to say, and I totally forgot to, you just said that about the stimulus check. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I believe that election was stolen. I believe we're going to find out years later that that's a whole nother issue.
That's a whole
we don't have institutions. Where's our Center for American Progress? Where's our Black think tanks? There's one. We already know the joints, and we already know. And when you look at the U.S., the Black Chamber of Commerce, again, so why do we only have one of each? So these 1% Blacks, that's another issue that I have, is that I think the Blacks, the middle class, and everybody else, but these 1% Blacks have been sitting out. And it's time, like the whites are starting to do it, say eat the billionaires. We need to start doing that and say, listen, you need to create these organizations. Black organization, not a Jewish person creating a Black organization.
Right.
I need a Black person to create a Black organization that does the research, so that when Sister Smith says something, there's a white paper behind it, and we don't have that. We're not.
Okay, I want to say something about Black folks with money. This is not the first generation that we've had to deal with that. Remember the Black cotillions in the 1800s and 1900s, and then they kind of like wore out. But we've always, and so, but they're not as popular as they used to be. So we've had to deal with the class situation as well as the racism that comes with that, and we managed to still overcome. They still voted the same way as poor Blacks because they knew that they still needed rights as well. So I'm not too concerned about that as much. And you see that all those Black folks, I mean, we lost, what are they losing? All the Black Republican House members, all of them.
All the Stephen Fetchits are gone.
All gone. They're not coming back. So it's going to be a completely White House White House. If they don't, actually, we don't flip it, but we're going to flip it. So I would say, so we have to have steps. The thing is that we have to be strategic about, we still got to talk about affordability. Because we're getting hit the hardest too on that. So we got to make that a point because everybody can relate to that. We got to talk about, the Iran war. We got to talk about, talk about this decision with SCOTUS, and then we do something about it. We make sure we get the House, and then we get, we change it. If we can change the Supreme Court, that'll be great, and we can fight better. But we got to be strategic. And something that Dr. Pratt said is that we got to get the word out to everybody. don't wait till election day to vote.
No, we can't. We
Right.
cannot wait. It's
Yeah.
insanity.
You have no time to fight if there's something going on. There's like a week to vote early in almost every state. Vote early. There's got to be a time. There's Saturdays in early voting. Vote early. The other
Even
thing,
though a lot of states have cut back on our voting time,
right? That's true, but don't wait to know the day of election, because if something is wrong, you will not get that fixed in time.
No.
And another thing I'm gonna say, definitely check your voter registration. I used to tell people once a week, every 2 weeks. Now I'm telling them, if you want to check every day, check every day.
Yeah.
But at least twice a week, check your voter registration and status, so that you know that if there's something that's going on, if they're challenging something, that you got time to fix it before that. And your mail-in ballots too. I mean, you have to be on top of it and make sure that your mail-in ballot has been received, so that you have time to turn it around if it hasn't been received. So
yeah, I just want a little thing about that mail-in ballot. I got a couple things I want to say super quick. Number one, there's a very small decision that a lot of people missed, but lawyers saw, and it said that you couldn't sue the USPS if something did not arrive on time. And so a lot of lawyers are like, oh yeah, what about mail-in ballots? So the best information that I can give now is to say either vote in person.
Yes.
If you have a loved one that has to use an absentee because of their health conditions or whatever, take it down to that voting office in person.
Mm-hmm.
We can't even trust the post office no more, because if that ballot doesn't get there, you just out. I have to say this. I'm not going to go all into it, but just say, as someone who has done election protection, who has sat in the room when the ballots were counted, the 2024 election was not stolen. And I'm saying that for two reasons. One, because it's true. Well, three reasons. Two, because I don't want people to get sucked into that vortex of looking for, like, I like to watch a lot of medical dramas, and on the medical dramas, they always say, if you hear hoofbeats, think about horses, not zebras. Look at the most rational explanation. And if you look at and compare the data of voting from 2020 to 2024, there is a very obvious horse, not zebra reason why Kamala lost. It's because men of all races, white, Latino, Asian, and Black, they all dropped from anywhere from 10% to Latino men had the biggest drop, like 30%, and they flipped from Biden to Kamala. If men had voted the same way that they voted in 2020, we'd be saying Madam President Harris right now. That's something we can do something about. That's the third reason. If the election was stolen, what could we do about it? Even if it was, can we do something about educating men and young men to say, well, hey, you know, maybe voting for a woman wasn't the worst thing in the world. It goes back to what he was saying about the hatred for the LGBT community, which also is intimately tied with hatred for women. That's something we can do something about. Mm-hmm. I don't like us focusing on things that, if they were true, even if we couldn't do nothing about it. Mm-hmm. We can do something about this. We can
the other thing is
conversations.
The other thing is 20 million people who voted for Biden did not show up and vote for Kamala Harris. So there's a turnout issue. And and as Dr. Pratt was saying, it's like we register people. Like, for instance, Texas has more Black people in, I say this statistic all the time, there are more Black people in Texas than any other state. And Texas is not necessarily a red state. It's a non-voting state. So we're missing something in between registering people and actually getting them to the poll. That's the piece I think we should be working on the back end, is how do we get people to the polls? And because of all the redistricting and all the poll changes and stuff, we need to have an organization where we can go collect people to take them to their polling district and not rely on them to have to figure out a way, especially if it's a 30-minute drive or whatever. We should have caravan. You don't tell people how to vote, but you just get them to the polls.
Like the polls the churches used to do.
We do. I'm very much involved with that. My church does that. We do a lot of social activism and what have you, and whatnot. I gotta show you guys. I have got to show you these 2 videos that I have. I think they're very important. I would like to show you one of them. Hold on. Let's see. Nope, that's not the right one. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And I am going to show you this on this Christian nationalist minister and what he happens to say.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
People won't vote away democracy fairly. Strong, powerful men are going to have to get into power and take it away by force. Take a look at this.
I don't think you're going to get people to vote away democracy. I think that it has to be taken. I think that men, virtuous, ambitious, masculine men, have to climb the ladder of power and forcefully take away from the people that which is their detriment.
This guy is a Texas pastor at the Covenant Bible Church and leader of the Right Response Ministries. He's openly called for the end of democracy and has argued that the U.S. is an Algo-Protestant project and that Hindus, Muslims, and Jews should be banned from holding public office. He wants the rise of a Christian nationalist Caesar or a dictator to rule the nation, claiming democracy has failed to protect moral order. And of course, he's part of the MAGA movement as well. He's called for Trump to arrest and even execute political opponents like Tim Walz. He frequently advocates for what he calls biblical justice, which he thinks is using the death penalty to instill fear in the public. And he said that shooting and unaliving migrants who approach the border wall is the more merciful option because it would serve as a deterrent that eliminates all immigration. Not very Christ-like. I believe in freedom of speech, but when somebody's speech puts the lives and rights of millions of Americans at risk, something has to be done. Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbin says that since people
So that's one of them. And I just say, God help us, because that, but did you see his smallness?
We tore him up. We tore him up for his other statement. You missed his other video where he said black pastors should not be preaching because they're stupid.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one.
Yes. So he, that actually, with the backlash from that, he actually did a whole episode responding and saying how he's not racist. So the voting thing, to your point, the voting thing, nobody's really called him out on that. He called black pastors, but the one he put up that said black pastors shouldn't be in the pulpit because they're stupid. And they're not. So black pastors showed up with their college degrees. And so that push was waved. And that forced him to do another follow-up episode trying to explain it. And then he had a Sambo person sitting next to him and saying he has a Sambo, a black Sambo. That's
I'm so sick of the Sambos.
Like the Manosphere, like the whole Andrew Tate. He has one of those guys.
Well, Pam, we ain't got to worry about that because we got the Lego people who are crushing the everybody. I am into the Lego people.
I am too. Because I said,
they're going to take him.
That's my stories.
And the beats. That's how I get my exercise in.
It's like it reminds me of mixtape days. Remember mixtape days? They would just drop a mixtape every Friday. Mixtape would be you be walking down the street, somebody, hey, so and so got a mixtape. Like, oh wow, you know.
This next video I want to show you is one, and I'm sure that you guys have seen it, but maybe everybody hasn't. But it's one to the point of the way I want our Democrats to fight. And I'm going to bring that up. Okay. Okay. Huh. Why isn't it going? This is so okay. Hold on. Run it back.
Maybe you share it with the audio. I don't know if that.
No, it's just not. It's not staying on.
Okay.
Is the audio still going on the other one?
Huh. It's so weird. What's happening? Because
it's Facebook or TikTok. That's Facebook.
It's on Facebook. Yeah.
That is weird.
How about closing and opening again?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try again. Okay.
While we do that,
I'm gonna go back and try.
I see in the comment section someone said that they were registering people to vote. Some women told them they were not voting. Told them they're not voting for Vice President Harris, and they were black because she was a woman.
Uh-huh.
I think that my concern with focusing on all the outliers when the majority did what they're supposed to do, it makes us feel, to me, that we're bringing it down.
Let's see. It is the craziest thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's glitching. Well, I agree with what he said. What the caption's on? That was why I reached out to you. That's a secret weapon to me. New York, Illinois, and Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Redraw the map. Yeah. I know Governor Wes Moore is pushing as hard as he can. We need more Black people in Maryland to support him and put that pressure on them. The jokers there to go ahead. These little, I don't want to say curse, like I said, these punk Democrats in the Maryland legislature that don't want to draw the map. When a map, like, and I know New York is going to be a little bit of a New York. We have not we. I'm in Louisiana, but New York has a constitution that says you can't do this, you can't do that. But there's ways around that, and I believe the governor will do what's the right thing.
Hochul is looking at it. She's got her attorneys on it, and if there's a way she could do it, she will. It's a little bit different than we could have done a referendum on a ballot, but it's too late for that now.
Right, exactly.
We had done that earlier this year or set it up last year. She could have made some changes, but we didn't know we were going to deal with that.
But what that video was trying to show everybody, that's the kind of fight I want to see us do. Not that timid thing. Oh, I don't know. It's not the proper way. And getting all Freddie.
And the Republicans who are tired of him, they want to see that fight too. The Republicans who are tired of him. So that's to that point. That's one of the things I also think that we're not necessarily this week or last week concentrating on, but we have to pivot immediately. And I'm committed to creating an independent journalism, political, whatever we call it, action committee or whatever you want. Not a PAC in the sense of, but there's a lot of independent journalists that are doing, like Kansas City Defender, MLK 50. There's a lot of smaller outlets that are doing some awesome things. There's an outlet system runs in Flint. There's some the City Reporters in Chicago. So like there's a bunch of independents that are not the typical, we'll say, usual suspects of Word in Black.
Yes.
That are out on the fringe, but they're making a difference in their communities. And I want to bring all of us together, maybe with the white version of that is Tara McGovern. She has something called Courier Newsrooms. And she raised $1
with them. Yes.
And so another thing is that the money, right? So this whole thing with independent journalists, we all are asking people to go to our Substack and get paid. So I understand that a lot of times the DNC does this thing where it comes to us as content influencers or content creators and wants us to work, but doesn't want to pay us. And so I'm looking at the independent journalists who are already out there hustling and already telling people, go to my Substack, read this article, because that I can affect change. I can help them grow their subscription. So it's a two-way street versus a one-way street. But in addition to that, I think we really have to triple down on infiltrating into the animus that people on the right have about this whole thing, whether it's Iran, whether it's Erica Kurt, whether it's all the grift that his family is doing.
Yes.
And the military, the God in the military was starting to trickle down, trying to trickle down. So we need to your point, Democrats need to figure out how to turn it on and trigger it and show them on the right side, hey, we got your back. Go ahead and vote or stay home. Stay home or vote for us. Either way, we'll appreciate that.
I'm going to leave you with one last positive thing, and then that's it for me tonight. I want to say that we need to also lean into the successes that we've had. We've flipped every seat, every race that came up, except for one, almost every seat, I should say, except for one. And that was the one in North Carolina. Was it North Carolina or was it Georgia? It was
Marjorie Taylor Greene seat. It was
Georgia.
We never got that close before.
Yeah, but he got closer and closer each time that he ran. So I'm just going to say this: these red districts, where everybody thinks is quote red, These people are tired. They tired. They voting. They like, get them bums out. And even the House Republicans, they don't want this job anymore because
they're retiring rather than go. Yes, exactly.
They're like, we don't want it. Y'all, please, Democrat, win this so you can go fix this, because they're tired too, because they can't do
It's
that.
a hot mess.
It's a hot mess.
Yeah.
So the positive is we're making changes regardless of what the districting is. So take that with you. Just everybody should go out and do as much as they can. Social media, getting the word out to family members, calling people, talking to them. I talk so much politics. My family is like, oh my God. So, but they know everything now. They don't have to do it themselves.
That's
I do all the research. I watch all the programs. I go do this, and I put it out there on social media, and I put it in a snapshot so they can understand, or at least figure out where to go look for that information and try to understand what's going on. That's what I do. I don't get out in the streets, but like that. But I am out in the
streets.
That's right. That's right.
Right. We're on these internet streets.
And for my closing, I want to say two quick things. One, we've talked a lot about federal stuff, but who draws these districts? It's your governor. We just talked about Governor Hochul, and it happens in Lansing, it happens in Raleigh, it happens in, wherever your state capital is. And that's where we have to focus. If you want to protect your right to vote and you don't want folks to district you out, that's what we're going to have. I can't remember which state is doing this, but a few states are experimenting with having a nonpartisan or bipartisan districting board. That's probably what everybody should be doing. But if you want to protect it, go and make sure you vote for the right people at the local level. And finally, my good thing will be, and this is what the story I was starting, didn't get to finish earlier when I was talking to you, Pam, but Shirley Chisholm ran for president in 1972. First Black person, first Black woman to run for president and actually get delegates. I think she only got she didn't get very many, right? But she knocked down that door to Jesse Jackson, to Barack Obama, to Kamala Harris. But here's the thing. When you think about the United States as a history, we're going to be 250 years old this year. Meanwhile, England is looking at us like 250. And meanwhile, Egypt and China is looking at them like 1,000 some years. What?
And Iran looking at us.
The blink of an eye. So think about it like this. Yes, we have made a lot of progress, and yes, we have made some losses. But the fact that we could go from Shirley Chisholm in 1972, and everybody's saying she ain't got no chance, to Kamala Harris coming this close to being the president within a generation and a half, we are winning. And that's what they don't want us to realize. If you look at it from a historical perspective, we are winning. There's two sisters. They attended Shaw University, and they both lived to be over 100 years old.
Oh, the Delaney sisters.
Yes. They wrote a book called Having Our Say. And there's Bessie, and she was the more feisty one. And someone, she said, once asked her, what's wrong with Black people? And she said, after all we've been through, what's wrong with us? We need to wonder what's right with us. Anybody else would not have survived what we've been through. That's what we need to carry with us. We have survived so much. We will survive this, but we need community. We need each other, and we need to love on each other so much. As Renee said, we need to stay out them streets.
Martin, you got a last word for us? And we're going to close it out because we are way over time.
Stay Black. Keep your head on a swivel. Continue to stay on the same course that your grandmother, great grandmother, and I'll say something. I don't know how Renee feels about this, but this Gen A, I call them the returning generation. I believe we're raising our great grandparents. These little ones, they are not like the Z's, not like the millennials. They don't care about your feelings. They're going to say what they're going to say, leave it there, walk away. We had a 10-year-old in 2022 who was the Time Kid of the Year. He fed 100,000 people, 10. 3-year-old Black girl in North Carolina. So you can just Google 3-year-old selling lemonade for homeless women diapers. She's walking to the homeless shelter with diapers big as her because she's so enough money to buy these diapers with her Mary Jane shoes on, looking like she's getting ready to leave and she had white sunglasses on, looking like she's getting ready to leave there and go march across Selma. Then in Philly in 2018 or 2019, we had an 8-year-old told her parents, we're not losing this money because her brother dropped out of barber school. She became the world's youngest barber. She's not licensed because she was too young, but she stood on a milk cart and she cut people's hair for free every Saturday. They said that barber school said that was the best student they ever had. And lastly, the youngest registered farmer, licensed and everything else, certified rather, in Georgia is now 10. She has a full ride to South Carolina School of Agriculture, but she was taught by her great-grandmother at 3. So I'm just saying, we got this, but then they got us. They came back. Gen A is our great-grandparents coming back.
Dr. Pratt, you are absolutely right. My triplets walk by when they see White House grandpa on the screen, they go, roof. I was like, oh my gosh. And they go, ew.
They not about your feelings. They gonna tell the truth, and they want the information. They want information. Not I taught real quick, less than 1 minute story. I taught me and my wife. We were executive directors of a program called Code Started in Atlanta. 18 to 25-year-olds a whole year, taught them 4 languages and computer, and got them jobs in tech. The problem was they would not stop smoking, vaping. They wouldn't return calls, all this other stuff. So when I look at Gen A, when I look at Gen Z, when I look at millennials, what I see, this Gen A is not asking you for permission. They're asking you, is this the right way? Okay, good. Now I got it. And they're gone. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Well, I have enjoyed our conversation. I feel better. I feel empowered. And know that we got lots of work to do. We got to register people to vote. We got to talk to Lottie Dottie and everybody, Pookie and Ray Ray and them, and get them registered to vote and get IDs and get
and Becky and Karen. We need to talk to Becky, Bill, and Karen.
Yeah, and talk to Becky and Karen. Y'all got to look. Y'all got to get straight and get right, or get lost and left behind. All right, guys, let's wave people off. Good night, everyone.